Let's talk about narrow channels. Well, this rule applies in all conditions of visibility. Some of the mariners may find it difficult to understand, although this is very straightforward rule. So this rule uses the term narrow and channel. Well, the word narrow will depend on the type of ship and circumstances. Channel you can refer to a dredged or natural. Let me repeat, the channel can be a natural or dredged lane which is restricted on either side by shallow water. Usually you will find that the channel is marked with buoys, but it is not compulsory that every channel will be having buoys. Now there is another term used which is fairway. Well, this is generally open water route, and often it is away from natural hazards such as oil, platforms, mines, and the route for smaller vessels. So here this is a picture of a typical narrow channel. There is shallow water on the outer limit of the channel. This is a pretty open area and this is fairway. Well, you can see this fairway buoy. Now let's talk about rule 9a, which says that a vessel proceeding along a course of a narrow channel or fairway. Well, if you notice, the term narrow channel or fairway is a combined term. The rule states further that the vessel shall keep to the outer limit of the channel or fairway which lies on her own starboard side, as is safe and practicable. Basically, the rule is intending that the vessel will pass port to port. Now here, this is the vessel which has to move to the outer limit which lies on the starboard side of the channel. So this vessel is going to pass like this, and it has to keep to the outer limit as is safe and practicable. Similarly, the other vessel will keep to the starboard side and will keep as it is safe and practicable. Both the vessel will pass port to port in narrow channel. Now let's talk about deciding factors which we can determine whether the fairway is a narrow channel or not. So one of the factor is width of navigable fairway. That is going to decide whether this fairway is really a narrow channel. The second, of course, is draft of your ship, and third is maneuverability of the vessel. All right, the term navigable could be different concept for different vessels. For example, for a sailing vessel, the concept of navigable is different than for a VLCC or a container ship. However, these rules are applicable for all types of ships. You should also note that there is a separate rule for TSS, that is traffic separation scheme, and that rule is different than the rule which is given in the narrow channel, which the rule for TSS shall be studied later on. Now, it is the OW who decides whether he or she is sailing in narrow channel. Now let's talk about rule 9b, which says that a vessel of less than 20 meters in length or a sailing vessel shall not impede the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within a channel or fairway. So vessel less than 20 meters in length and the sailing vessel shall not impede the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate within a channel or fairway. By definition, that is actually CBD, vessel constrained by her draft. So a vessel has to justify for being a vessel which can safely navigate within a narrow channel or fairway. and these justification means that this vessel was unable to leave the channel, or this vessel could not slow down because of a strong current, or there was a following vessel. It is also interesting to note this definition 3H of a CBD. The term vessel constrained by a draft means a power driven vessel which, because of a draft in relation to the available depth and width of navigable water. Well, you should not. Available depth and width of navigable water is severely restricted in her ability to deviate from the course she is following. Rule 9C talks about vessel engaged in fishing which shall not impede the passage of any other vessel navigating within a narrow channel or fairway. Well, you should also note that if nobody is using this narrow channel or fairway, that is the time you can fish in the channel. However, at any time a vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of a vessel navigating within a narrow channel or fairway. So, here we have used a term called impede. The rule is very clear. The vessel required not to impede the passage should stay well clear. Basically, a vessel which is required not to impede the passage should take early and substantial action, and it should ensure that there is a sufficient sea room for the safe passage of another vessel which can safely navigate within a narrow channel or fairway. Well, this is the duty of impeding vessel to stay out of the way, irrespective of stand-on rights which are given in Rule 18 responsibility. Say for example, that says the pardon vessel will keep clear of NUC, ram, fishing vessel and sailing vessel in this order. Then the sailing vessel will keep clear of NUC, ram and fishing vessel. And then the fishing vessel will keep clear of NUC and ram. However, the duty of impeding the vessel, a vessel which is required not to impede the passage, should stay well clear. This is given in Rule 8, Rule 9 and also some reference in Rule 10 as well. Now, let us talk about crossing. So, a vessel shall not cross a narrow channel or fairway if such crossing impedes the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within such a channel or fairway. Why? Because the crossing will impede the safe passage of a CBD. So, any vessel shall not cross. And if a CBD observes that the other vessel is crossing, then it may sound at least 5 short and rapid blasts as per Rule 34D, which is given here. Of course, these signals are doubt signal and it should not be used in an emergency in last minute. Use the signal well in time to draw the attention because you are having doubt why this vessel is crossing. Then we have overtaking in narrow channel. Well, if you are overtaking from starboard side, you need to sound the signal to prolong one short blast, and if you are overtaking from port side, you need to sound 2 prolong and 2 short blast. Overtaking is permitted only when the vessel being overtaken, that is this vessel, is in agreement, and this agreement signal is 1 prolong, 1 short, 1 prolong and 1 short blast. In case the vessel being overtaken is in disagreement, it may sound at least 5 short and rapid blasts. The text of this rule is given in Rule 9E and it gives the reference of Rule 34C. You should also note that the overtaking rule, that is 13 rule, overrides Rule 9. The overtaking rule, that is Rule 13, it states that overtaking vessel must keep clear all the time. Of course, there are other aspects which are dealt in overtaking rule. Now let's talk about a vessel nearing band or an area which is obscured by intervening obstruction. So you need to navigate with caution because there is a possibility that other vessel might be approaching, and you need to sound one prolonged blast. And if you sound one prolonged blast and there is an approaching vessel, that also has to answer by one prolonged blast and will show her presence. So this is the text of rule 9F, and there is a caution to vessels nearing band or the other area because an approaching vessel may be obscured. Okay, and this also is a reminder to comply rule 34E, where you need to sound one prolonged blast and that should be answered by an approaching vessel by sounding same one prolonged blast. The last part of this rule is rule 9G, which says that the vessel shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid anchoring in narrow channel. So anchoring in narrow channel is prohibited except in some urgency. If there is some urgency, you may consider. That's why the term if the circumstances of the case admit. So only in some urgent case you can anchor, otherwise it is prohibited to anchor in narrow channel.